GOBankingRates looked at every state in the country and calculated what it actually costs to retire comfortably. In California, that number is $142,000 a year. Not $80,000, not $100,000. $142,000 every single year just to keep the lights on and not worry about running out of money before you die. And if you are someone who's been told California is worth the premium, that the weather and the economy and the culture make up for the price tag, you need to hear what that $142,000 actually buys you. Because one major metro in this state now requires a household income over $200,000 just to afford a median-priced home. Wildfire insurance in parts of this state has crossed $25,000 a year. And the people who are supposed to be building wealth here, the middle class, are leaving faster than any state has ever recorded. But the number that should keep you up at night is one we haven't gotten to yet. And it has nothing to do with housing. If this is your first time here, we break down the real data on where Americans should and shouldn't be putting down roots. Subscribe now so you don't find out the hard way. Let's get into it. California's pitch has always been the best in the country, and you can't even blame people for believing it. The fifth largest economy on Earth. Silicon Valley, Hollywood, the most productive farmland in North America, and 840 miles of Pacific coastline. The weather in San Diego alone has probably sold more one-way plane tickets than any real estate agent in history. And for decades, the deal made sense. You paid more, but you earned more. The premium came with a paycheck that justified it. But that equation broke sometime around 2018, and by 2025, it wasn't even close anymore. The median home price in California right now sits above $800,000. In the Bay Area, that number pushes past $1.2 million in many zip codes. At current mortgage rates, a buyer putting 20% down on that $800,000 median home is looking at a monthly payment north of $4,200 before property taxes, before insurance, before HOA fees. The all-in monthly cost of owning a median California home is closer to $5,500 in most counties. That is $66,000 a year just for the roof. But here's where the math starts to feel personal. The median household income in California is roughly $92,000. After federal and state income taxes, that household takes home somewhere around $68,000 to $72,000 a year. So, a median California family earning a median California income would need to spend nearly their entire after-tax paycheck on housing alone. There is nothing left, not for groceries, not for gas, not for the retirement account that's supposed to get you to that $142,000 a year figure. That is not a tight budget. That is a mathematical impossibility for anyone without a second income, a tech salary, or family money. And the renters are not doing better. Average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles has pushed past $2,500 a month. In San Francisco, it's closer to $3,200. San Diego is over $2,300. These are not luxury apartments in doorman buildings. These are standard units in neighborhoods where you still hear your neighbor's TV through the wall. The typical renter in a California metro is spending 35 to 45% of their gross income on rent, well above the 30% threshold that financial advisors have been screaming about for years. So the housing alone should be enough to make anyone pause before loading the moving truck. But the wildfire crisis is what turns an expensive state into a financially dangerous one. Cal Fire data from the last decade tells a story that the tourism board would rather you ignore. California has seen 5 of its 10 largest wildfires in recorded history occur since 2017. The 2020 fire season alone burned over 4.2 million acres and destroyed more than 10,000 structures. The Camp Fire in Paradise in 2018 killed 85 people and wiped an entire town off the map. And then, in January 2025, the Los Angeles wildfires tore through Pacific Palisades and Altadena, destroying thousands of homes in neighborhoods that were supposed to be safe, structures worth millions of dollars, gone in hours, while the smoke drifted across the entire Los Angeles basin. And that's not even the part that should worry you most. The insurance industry watched all of this and made a business decision. State Farm, Allstate, and other major carriers have restricted or paused new homeowner policies across large portions of California. If you own a home anywhere near a wildfire risk zone, and that includes vast stretches of Southern California, the Sierra foothills, and the hills around the Bay Area, your options are shrinking fast. Many homeowners are being pushed onto the California FAIR Plan, the state's insurer of last resort. But the FAIR Plan was designed as a temporary safety net, not a permanent solution. Its coverage limits are lower, its premiums are climbing, and it was never built to handle the volume of policies it is now absorbing. Homeowners in high-risk zip codes are reporting wildfire insurance premiums of $10,000, $15,000, and in some cases over $25,000 per year. Stack that on top of the $66,000 housing cost, and you're approaching six figures just for shelter and the insurance to protect it. In California, where it doesn't even snow. If you're still watching and this is landing for you, hit subscribe. We put out a new data breakdown every single week. Now, here's where the cost crisis goes beyond housing and starts eating into your daily life. California gas prices consistently run $1 to $1.5 per gallon above the national average. For a two-car household driving an average of 25,000 combined miles a year, that's an extra $1,500 to $2,000 a year just on gasoline compared to what you'd spend in Texas or Tennessee. Groceries in California. Metros run 20 to 30% higher than the national average. A gallon of milk, a dozen eggs, a rotisserie chicken at the grocery store in Burbank costs meaningfully more than the identical items at a store in Charlotte or Phoenix. Then there's the income tax. California's top marginal rate is 13.3%, the highest state income tax in the nation. And the bracket structure means you don't need to be rich to feel it. A household earning $150,000, comfortable but not wealthy, is paying a meaningful chunk to Sacramento on top of federal taxes, on top of the 7.25% base sales tax, on top of vehicle registration fees that routinely run 3 to 4 times what other states charge. None of these individual costs are catastrophic on their own, but they compound. Every tank of gas, every grocery run, every paycheck, California takes a little more than the state next door would. And that compounding is exactly why the census data looks the way it does. Between 2020 and 2024, California lost over 800,000 residents on a net domestic migration basis. That number represents the people who moved out minus the people who moved in from other states. It does not count international immigration, which partially offsets the domestic loss. But the domestic figure alone makes California the single largest source of internal out-migration in the country over that period. But the question that matters more than how many is who. The data shows it's not retirees cashing out beachfront equity, it's working-age adults between 25 and 44, the demographic that builds the tax base, starts businesses, fills apartments, and keeps school enrollment from collapsing. They are leaving for Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Idaho, and increasingly Tennessee and Florida. They are moving to places where $92,000 a year, California's median income, buys a house with a backyard and leaves money in the bank at the end of the month. The CA Department of Finance projections show that California's population growth will remain near zero or slightly negative through 2030 on a domestic basis. International immigration and births are expected to keep the total population roughly flat, but a state that relies on income tax and sales tax to fund its government does not need flat population. It needs growth, and the people leaving are disproportionately the ones who are paying the bills. And this brings us to the part that makes California's situation different from every other expensive state. California is not struggling because it has nothing to offer. The opposite is true. The economy is enormous. The universities are world-class. The weather is objectively as close to perfect as anywhere in the continental United States. The cultural infrastructure, the food scene, the diversity, the access to nature, There is a real reason that tens of millions of people chose to build their lives here over the last century. But that's precisely what makes the cost crisis so brutal. California has everything except affordability, and affordability is the one thing that determines whether you can actually access any of the rest. The beaches are free. The $5,500 monthly mortgage to live within driving distance of them is not. The hiking trails cost nothing. The $25,000 fire insurance premium to own a home near the trailhead will bleed you dry. The economy generates enormous wealth. But if you're earning the state's median income, that wealth is being generated around you, not by you and not for you. That $142,000 retirement figure from GOBankingRates isn't shocking because it's wrong. It's shocking because it's probably right, and the vast majority of Californians will never come close to saving that much, which means one of two things. You stay and you retire on less than you need, or you leave and you retire somewhere that your money actually works for you. If you think California's cost math is bad, next week we're breaking down a state where the property taxes alone are pushing lifelong residents out of homes they've owned for 30 years. The numbers might be the most brutal we've covered yet. Click the video on screen so you don't miss it.